Join me every month for the inspiration to find your finish line. Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Find Your Finish Line. I'm Mike Riley, and thank you for joining us today. My guest is someone who has had an amazing career in all aspects of triathlon and multisport, and I know you're going to be inspired by her story. Before we get started with the podcast, I'd like to thank Pillar Performance, our presenting sponsor. Pillar is a sports micronutrition company, and you know, the easiest way to describe them is hydration and carbohydrate products that will take you through to the finish line. Pillar's mission is to get athletes to the start line over and over again. I was introduced to the product back at IRONMAN New Zealand in 2021, and I've been taking their triple magnesium powder, and it's been a game changer for me for sleep and recovery. I was a naysayer at first when they told me about it, but now I take it about 30 to 40 minutes before I go to bed at night. My sleep is deeper, I get less cramps, and I recover better for the next day's workout. Plus, as we're coming in our part of the world, into the winter season, try the Immune Vitamin C to keep you healthy when the winter months come along. For my North America listeners, go to thefeed.com/pillar. And for the first-time buyers, enter the code FINISHLINE and receive 15% off on all their products. For all of my international listeners, go to pillarperformance.shop, enter the same code FINISHLINE for 15% on your first-time purchases. So thank you very much to Pillar. I'm so excited about this podcast because my guest today has been involved with triathlon for well over 35 years as a pro, an advocate for the sport, a mentor, an expert commentator, one of the most well-known voices in our sport today. She's the pro liaison for Challenge Family Triathlons, 15-time Ironman champion, Challenge Roth champion, Ironman Australia Hall of Fame. The resume just goes on and on and on. Welcome, Belinda Granger.
Oh, finally. I mean, how many times have you and I tried to tee this up, talked about it, and honestly, it's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be finally on your show, Mike.
I was starstruck by you when I first met you back in Foster Tuncurry, Ironman Australia, way back in the day. I loved your voice. I loved your energy. I loved your passion. I still love you today. But my first question on Find Your Finish Line, I always ask everybody this first question: what kind of workout did you get in today, Belinda?
It's funny you should say that. So, even though I've been a triathlete for such an incredibly long time, I've never been a fan of early mornings. It's a bit of an ongoing joke here with all of my friends in Queensland because living in Queensland, everyone trains at the what we call the Cracker Sparrow. So 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning, it's madness. I hate it. I'm more European than I am Australian in that remark, but I got up early this morning. I got up at 5 to do a session at 6 just so I could make sure that I was ready to go on your show. So it's a big deal because I do not like training early in the morning. But I actually did what is known as a hot hit Pilates session, which
Wow.
there's a gym up the road that all of my girlfriends and we do. So it's one of the most insanely difficult workouts that I do all week, but it's the most beneficial as well.
You know, it's funny when I see the pictures of you guys this past weekend or two at Noosa with Beth and Rinny and the girls. And my gosh, I go, I want to be there. They're having so much fun.
Oh, look, it is incredible, Mike. I have the most amazing group of girlfriends, the ones that live here in Noosa full time, but also, as you said, we have Rinny and Tio here at the moment. They're here for the next couple of months. We've just had Emma Snowsill here. She's leaving next week. So the amount of women that come in and out as well, it's the most incredible, most inspiring group of women, and they really do keep me going day in, day out. I have to admit I am the oldest of the crew, but in saying that, they keep me so young. I don't feel old at all because I am continually surrounded by these incredible young women.
Yeah, it's who you surround yourself with. That's your age
Absolutely.
bracket.
Absolutely.
So you live in beautiful Noosa with your husband Justin, and it just must be like heaven there. Why Noosa?
You know, it's funny. I'm from Sydney originally. Went to school at Sydney, went to University of Sydney. Love Sydney still to this day. I have a lot of friends that still live there. But when Justin and I decided to become full-time professional athletes, so that meant giving up our jobs back home. I was a phys ed teacher and he worked for Greg Rule in the industry, for Rudy Project, Continental Tires, etc. We just realised we couldn't train full time in Sydney. It was just too busy, too crazy. The only place you could train all day long was Centennial Park, and there's only so many times you can do a 4K loop on the bike before you go stir crazy. So Justin had mentioned this place on the Sunshine Coast because he used to come up here for training camps back in the day. And I said, all right, well, let's just go up and we'll see what it's like. And we ended up renting our place out that we owned in Sydney because we thought, well, we're never going to move up here permanently. We need to keep our place in Sydney. Within about 3 months of living here, we knew that this place was going to be home. It was just the most beautiful little snippet of paradise. I'd never been before. I'd never been further north than the Gold Coast. But we came up here at the time so we could do the Noosa Triathlon. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, let's do Noosa Triathlon, and then we'll stay on for a training camp, see if we like the feel of this place. As I said, the rest is history. 3 months. We did the Noosa Triathlon, absolutely loved it. My parents came up to watch me race. They ended up buying land here that weekend. They fell in love with the place. And long story short, my entire bloody family now live in Noosa. No one lives in Sydney anymore. And this is home. So Queensland, we are now, I always say we live in Queensland. We're still New South Welshmen living in Queensland, but we've been here for 20 odd years. So I don't know when the change actually needs to take place.
Beautiful. Well, Belinda, we'll get into your racing and your career, but I want to start out by touching on our triathlon family. It's no doubt triathlon's one of the best social sports out there.
Absolutely.
And it has always, in my mind, matched your personality. Isn't that kind of what drew you into this sport?
Absolutely. Without a doubt in my mind. I was always a sporty kid. I did every sport known to mankind. It used to drive my parents insane because every 6 months I'd want to change to something else. I think by the time I was in high school, I tried practically every sport that was available. And then when I got to university, I was a little bit lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I distinctly remember waking up one day and looking in the mirror and not liking what I saw on the other side. I was always a fit, active, competitive person. And I didn't see that person in the mirror anymore. I think it was around the second year of university. So I thought I need to find something that is going to motivate me to get out of bed in the morning, is going to make me a better person physically, mentally, emotionally. And someone had told me about this sport of triathlon. And I thought, oh, it sounds perfect because it's 3 different sports. I'm not going to get bored. And took it up, fell in love with it straight away. Never really thought about it becoming a profession, like being that good that it would be my profession. It was Justin who actually said to me, you can actually be pretty good at this. And he completely changed my mindset. And before you know it, I was racing as a professional athlete. But beyond all that, beyond all the successes, the greatest thing I've been given from this sport are the friendships and the social side of it. It's been the most incredible thing that anything that's ever been given to me.
I think in this sport, and I've always said this, that as beautiful as my family is and my spouse and my kids and grandkids and brothers and sisters and how much I love them, I can just move to the other side. And it's, my gosh, all of a sudden you're in that same type feeling with people you've been kindred with sometimes for 30 years. Yep. I don't know how it is that this sport does that. I don't know if it's a shared pain. It's not an easy thing to do. But for some reason, the social aspect and the friendships, they're pure. They're very pure. I just remembered something, because weren't you with the tri club, the Brats?
Yes. Oh gosh, you've got a good memory.
Well, because I'll never forget, I'm in Foster and I'm seeing the team, the kit, BRAT, capital BRAT. Yeah. And I'm going, Brat? My big brothers used to call me a brat when I was a kid. What the heck does that mean? Why would they call themselves Brat? And that's when I really got introduced to the tri-club aspect of Australia. It was so strong, and seeing that in Foster. But that had to be one of your best social things to get into the sport too, with the tri-club, with Brad.
Absolutely. I owe that club. And of course it stands for Bondi Runners and Triathlon Club, the Brat Club, based in Bondi Beach, the infamous Bondi Beach. And they are such a huge chunk a huge chunk of the reason that I got into the sport, that I continued in the sport, that I ended up thriving and loving the sport as much as I did. And that's why I love races like we've just had the Noosa Triathlon here, which is the largest Olympic distance race in the world. So many people from out of state come up, and it's the one time of the year where I get to see people from the Brat Club that I haven't seen sometimes for years on end. And like you said, it doesn't matter if it's been 5-10 years since you've seen someone. You take off where you left off, and it's like you're still best friends. And I remember I was down on the start line calling people into the water. And so I get to see everyone, start their race. And half the time I was screaming, there's Kerry Freeman, there's such and such, hey. And it was, honestly, I had cramps in my face from smiling. There were 14 waves going through on Sunday. And I was so exhausted by the end, but happy exhausted, because it was just bringing up so many old memories from the Brat Club, time in the Brat Club, moving up here. And you're dead right. The club movement in Australia is like no other in the world. And I think that's where we get so many athletes start in the sport and realize just how great the sport is.
Exactly. Foster brings up so many memories for me. And I know your first time there was the mid-90s to the late 90s. And I had you in the bios. You were one of the favorites in the races. That's how I was introduced to you. I think we did the pro panel and all that good stuff. But you didn't have the greatest race there. And you did a lot of racing up to Ironman Australia. It had to be a learning lesson, but it also had to be awful darn disappointing, wasn't it? I look back now, obviously at the time, I was a lot younger then and definitely a lot less wiser. As we all were.
And I was a bull at the gate. And, I'd had a fairly quick rise. Success from when I decided to become a full-time professional athlete, and the rise was quick. And with that comes a tiny bit of cockiness, I must admit. And I went into that race, all guns a blazing, and without a level head and without the patience I think that is required for those full distance races. You're always taught to expect the unexpected over a long day, and I don't think I did. I just expected everything to go, this is how the race is going to play out. I'm going to swim like this, I'm going to ride like this, and then I'm going to hold on the run. And I got a flat tire on the first lap. Anyone that's done Foster before knows those roads are unforgiving. They are horrendous. And I had singles on, and I'd never practiced changing a single. If I got a flat tire, I could do it with any other sort of tire, but not these specific race tires at the time. I glued them on so tightly that when I tried to get them off, they literally wouldn't budge. And I'm on the side of the road. I'm thinking, I'm crying my eyes out. The whole world is imploding around me. Why me? Why did I get a flat tire? I ended up taking the skewer out of my back wheel and digging the end of the skewer in to get the tire off. I eventually got it changed, but I think I lost something like 35 minutes. It was ridiculous. And tried to make up all the time I lost in the next lap, blew myself to smithereens, and I think 18, I don't even know if I made it to the 18K mark, to be honest, Mike, before I just called it a day. And, it was demoralizing. I was embarrassed. I hated the world. I hated the sport of triathlon. But a few months down the track, it was actually the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I was taught so much, learned so much in that one mishap that I never, ever did again. I think the next time I actually DNF'd a race was 10 years later in Hawaii when I was just having a bad day. But up until then, there was never, ever another DNF and never, ever another case where I didn't go into a race prepared for the unknown. So I learned a very valuable. It was a really shitty lesson, but it was a very valuable lesson that day.
Some of the things I learned was I just cannot believe, and that probably was the year you did that in 98 or 99, probably my fifth or sixth year there. And the after parties were frigging legendary.
Crazy.
Nobody has ever matched the after parties. It was like the fifth or sixth year. And one of the mates came up to me, and he'd had a few, and he was a little pissed. And for the people that don't know, pissed in Australia is
drunk as a skunk. Drunk as a skunk.
Yeah. So he goes, Riley, mate, you're a legend. I go, what? Yeah, bloody legend. And I'm thinking, What do you mean a legend? And nobody, I can't, there's nobody, a bloody legend. And I go, I never forgot that in all my
Oh
life.
my God. I tell you, there was at the RSL club. I still remember them. And it used to literally take me days to recover. And I look now and,
Yes.
obviously the parties today are nowhere near that. And I understand that the sport's grown a lot more professionally since then. And there's backing up race after race. But, after Foster, we used to take a good month off so we could afford to have a really good night on Monday night.
I'd stay there a day or two, and I couldn't wait to get on that 13-hour flight. I go, okay, now I can rest. Now I can rest for these people.
Oh, it was insane. I know some of my favorite memories. And I think I raced Ironman Australia. Of course, it moved before I retired. It moved to Port Macquarie. I ended up doing Port Macquarie a couple of times, but 10 times I raced Ironman Australia. And I mean, I never achieved what I wanted to achieve, which was first to win the race for one. Always beaten by someone either from Canada or America. It was either a Laurie Bowden, Lisa Bentley, Sian Welch, I think one year as well. So it was. I've got a lot of really good racing memories as well as after party memories there.
I always felt, when you bring that up, because you always want that country person to do very, very well because they're in front of they're at their home country. All their fans want them. And that's happened a few times there in Foster, Tuncurry, or people would try to go to Ironman New Zealand, beat Cameron Brown, and he beat him 12 times in a row. And I go, hey, it's just amazing to me how sometimes even in your home country, you have a tough time. Then did you have thoughts around then or after that, like, oh my gosh, I've got to get to Kona? Was that the paramount thing for you at that time?
No, I look, it's funny. I try to remember this because obviously now I still deal with the professional athletes every day.
Right. And
for majority of the long distance athlete, that is the absolute sole goal. And they make that abundantly clear when we're looking at races that they might want to do throughout the year. Sole goal, the main purpose is to get to Kona, or obviously now Nice as well. And I try to think back to when I was racing, whether it was the absolute. And look, definitely I wanted to get to Kona and I wanted to go. But I don't think I put the pressure on myself that I see some of these athletes today because there were so many other incredible races that I wanted to do around the world. I did a lot of racing in and around Asia because I loved the heat and humidity. Well, I should rephrase that. I hated it, but I actually raced well in it. So I liked
Laguna Phuket.
Exactly, Laguna Phuket, which I'm literally getting on a plane on Saturday to head back there. But can you believe it is the 30th anniversary of that race this year?
Wow.
So crazy to think. And I think I've been to 22 of them.
Yeah, I think I went to the second one, second and third one. Murphy brought me over.
Yes.
Worked my ass off.
Yeah, he's well, Murphy was the one that firstly invited me there back in the day. So I have him to thank. And now, of course, I work for the race on the other side. I help them get their elite field. We've got a cracker of a field this year, including the likes of Hayden Wild. So that's very exciting to have him coming this year. But I do the live coverage, and I don't think there's been a race. I mean, obviously Challenge Roth would be very, very close, but I think Phuket is a race that I've been to more times than any other race ever. As I said, I think this is the 22nd or 23rd time, might even be more actually, that I've either, I obviously raced it for I think 12 or 13 times, and now I've been working at the race for the rest. So yeah, it's a race very close to my heart.
Well, I admire what you do on the microphone, and obviously since that's kind of what I did over the years, I always want to see someone excel at it. And I don't know if you remember the first time that we worked together. I believe it was the Hot Corner in Bustleton at WA.
Yes, that's right.
We were in it's kind of a little town, isn't it? Yeah, we went.
Yep, very small.
Got us to the small little town, and you and I were up there, and Pete Murray, and you started going, I started going, and I remember saying something like, "Is Pete going to say anything?" You go, "Not if we don't let him." So, and I was just enamored with your passion and the way you approached it. When you're doing that today and commentating, what's some of the things you do to prepare?
It's funny, Mike, because I did not ever purposely think I was going to be a commentator. When I was racing as a professional athlete, I often thought about what I wanted to do afterwards. And then my sole purpose was to help pro athletes, hence why I'm pro liaison. So all I want is to give pro athletes the opportunity that I had, because it is an incredible way of life. So anything I can do to help not just the top tier, all tiers, right to the very first people just turning pro and thinking about making it as a pro athlete. And so that's what I wanted to do. But I also love to talk, in case you hadn't noticed. And I get so excited when I watch races and I watch professional athletes doing things that I think they didn't even think possible. So I did sort of just fall into commentary by accident, but I do love it. And preparing for it, it's funny, people often ask me what I do because they say, how do you know everyone? I think I was talking to Mark Matthews once after the championship this year, and he said, Belinda, I don't know any other commentators that can actually pick specific athletes out from the swim. How do you do it? And I said, well, you know what? I do talk to these athletes and work with these athletes on a daily basis, obviously as pro liaison. But I also study their swim strokes. I also make sure I know what wetsuits they're wearing or what speed suits they're wearing. Obviously, coloured caps makes it easier as well. But I think I have such a vested interest in the pro athletes that I will do anything that it takes to find out more about them, not just as an athlete, but what makes them tick, what gets them up in the morning, what makes them different to any other pro athlete that's on the start line that day. So my methods are PTO website is fantastic. Instagram, I become the worst stalker of athletes known to mankind. But more importantly, I reach out to the athletes and I talk to them face-to-face, or obviously I get to see them at races. So I just sit and talk to them. I think you find out so much about an athlete if you sit and have breakfast with them. And, I don't just want to know about their coach or what their results or what training they did. I want to find out more about, as I said, what makes them tick, what makes them different to any other athlete that's there. And I genuinely love to do it. I'm a people person. I always have been. I love talking to people and I love finding out what makes them tick. So I think that comes hand in hand with good commentary.
Yeah, it really does. There's no doubt. And as the pro liaison for the Challenge family of triathlons, obviously you've been to Roth, Challenge Roth for probably 20 plus times, I would guess to say.
Yep.
And I'm embarrassed because I've never been there, and it's on my bucket list because obviously the way my career was going and where I was going, and it just wasn't something that I could put in the schedule. And I'm all about the sport. I'm like the second Bob Babbitt, the Gandhi of the sport.
Yes.
But what is it about Challenge Roth? What is it that makes it so darn special to so many people, but yet it's on the world stage, but not everybody can really get there? I mean, why is it so special?
Yeah, I often ask myself this, and the best thing I can say is that the Volsurfer family, and obviously it started before the Volsurfer family, but it's been the Volsurfer family that has really created this spectacle of an event. It's not just the race itself, and it's when you're standing there at the finish line and the last person comes across the finish line and they have this, look at this. I don't know if you can see. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. When they start this laser show and you look around the stadium, it is chock-a-block floor. We're talking about at midnight. The last competitors come across. Every single pro's down there, all of the top of the line pros, the best of the best. The place is packed. People have their arms around each other. Strangers have their arms around each other. And everyone is just looking at this laser show. And I often take a step back and just look around, and you can't help but cry because it's bringing so many like-minded people. And we're not just talking about the best of the best. We're talking about people that just want to better themselves in life in general, that are there, that just want to complete a race, get to the end and say, you know what, I've finally done it. You see it all the time when you're calling first-timers across the line in Ironman. It's just that achievement that you get from doing something that you might have thought 12 months was impossible. And with Roth, it's all that. But it's also bringing together a community of people, of like-minded people. And And it's this one family that's managed to do it. One family that has made this race what it is today. And when you meet Alice, I mean, obviously Felix's father passed away some time ago, but Alice, of course, his mother, Queen Alice, we call her, is still in charge. And then you've got Catherine and Felix, and then this incredible team that they've assembled that have so much passion for the sport. It's impossible not to go there and get excited. As you said, I've been there for 20 years now. My very first was in 2004, and I'll be heading back there again next year. And I've never lost my passion or my excitement for this race. I get there and I'm like a kid in a lolly shop just wanting to go. And to commentate that race every year is the diamond of my year. It's the gem. It's like nothing on earth. I love commentating in a variety of different races, but Roth is the one that I still get nervous. So like I got when I lined up on a start line for a race as a professional athlete, I get the same nerves when I get up that morning. You know, I start to shake, and I really have to concentrate to keep myself calm and relaxed. Yeah, it's crazy. It really is a crazy event. You've got to come. I know they would love to have you there. I know they would.
I know. I'm going to make it happen.
So
Belinda Granger, you're never really at a loss for words, but I'm saying that in respect, in a good way, because you tell it like it is, and you give your opinion without fail, and it's not a opinion where you're going to get yourself in trouble. But some people go, "Wow, she feels strongly about that." Mm-hmm. Where did you get that quality from?
100% from my mother. You know, my mum and dad, they've been there from the very start. And, you know, as I said, I was a phys ed teacher. My mum was a teacher. And when I told her that I was giving that away to become a full-time athlete, I really thought that she would be disappointed or think that it was the wrong thing to do. But both my mum and dad have been fully supportive of any decision I've made, to the extent where they've followed me around the world. If my dad was here right now, you know, we were having problems remembering what year my first Ironman was. He would be able to rattle off that stat like no tomorrow. He would be able to tell you what place I came, what time I did, all around the world. He's incredible. He's a mathematician, so he's got a very good memory, and he's very good with numbers. So I always ask him, sometimes when I've got an interview coming, I'm like, shit, I don't remember that stat. I'm like, Dad, tell me what did I come at this race? And he'll tell me what I came, what time I did. But it's been my mother who's always said, you know, follow your path and don't look sideways, and don't ever be ashamed to have an opinion. And even if it doesn't make everyone happy 100% of the time. But she also said, along with that, be respectful and understand that your opinion might not necessarily always be everyone else's opinion. So she's been my absolute rock, both my mum and dad. My dad was the one that got me into sport when I was very young in the first place. I think I did my first 5K fun run when I was about 6 years of age. So, yeah, he was the one that got me into sport. But my mother was the one that I think that my drive, my competitive spirit, my never say die attitude is definitely from my mother.
I love that. So think about this. You're top 10 6 times in Kona. You won Challenge Roth, Wanaka. You won Ironman Lake Placid. You've raced 50-plus iron distance races. What if you put yourself in today's triathlon economy? Could you imagine? Because the pros have so many avenues of racing and prize purses and championships. Could you imagine yourself in that, in today's racing as a 31-year-old pro?
It would be nice. I mean, obviously, I do a lot of the deals, particularly when it comes to Challenge Roth, and I think, oh, funny, I was still racing. And of course, now with the PTO series, and of course the Ironman T100, the Ironman series, and there's just so much on tap for these pro athletes. But with that, Mike, comes these other challenges, because I am finding, obviously, working with the pros day in, day out, there's almost too much. You know, when you're going, sometimes you look at a menu. Sometimes I like to go into a restaurant and I only want to have 3 choices, because then it's easy. I don't have to make a decision. There's only 3. It's just an easy, that'll do me. Imagine going into a menu where you've got 10 pages of different things to choose from. And I think that's what's happening to these pros today. They've got so much choice, which, hey, don't get me wrong, it's a great thing. But with that also comes the challenges, because you want it all. It's so hard to say, you know what? I need to put the blinkers on. This is the avenue that I've decided to take for this year. We saw Sam Long. I think he's a perfect example. It's hard. It's hard to say, you know what, for this year, this is the path I'm taking, and I'm not going to view sideways. But then all of a sudden, there's someone over here saying, hey, but we can give you this if you come over here. It's difficult. And with that comes sickness, comes injury, comes burnout. By the time we get to now, November, athletes are exhausted. So even if they're not sick and they're not injured, they're done. And we've still got a world championship in December in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I just think, how do these athletes get this primed and ready to go for not just any event, for a world championship? It's difficult. And I think we're starting to see some athletes really start to crumble. We've got the final for the T100, not this weekend, but next weekend in Dubai, the same thing. We've got some contracted athletes that have had to pull the pin because they're injured or they're done for the year. So it's as great as it is. I think it comes with its own set of difficulties as well. But I'd still rather them than what we had. So yes, I think it would be pretty cool. And the way I raced, I love to race a lot. I was renowned for racing, 5 full distance races a year. Didn't worry me. I pulled up really well. I think my greatest strength was not that I was always the most talented on the start line, anything but I was so strong mentally and also physically. My body was just, I think my old coach compared me to a German tank. I just never broke down. It was supposed to be a compliment, but anyway, yeah. So I think one magazine actually said, I was renowned for my outer world resilience. So I think that would be the greatest way to describe me and why I was able to race so often.
That's a good way. Where I see it is, mentally, that's the toughest part about anything in life, not only racing. And when someone sets a schedule at the beginning of the year, they mentally got that down. Yes. And they're thrown a curveball. Something happens and, oh my gosh, I can't go to Placid, or I can't go over here to Switzerland. I can't. So I've got to adjust and go here. And I think a lot of times the pros, maybe are the ones that are a little less mature can't handle that mentally. What do I do now? They look at it as a negative instead of, I got to pivot. So that's where I see why at the end of the season, some drop out, probably not only physically, because mentally they know they're kind of at a break point.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, even I see it even with some of our more seasoned pros, sometimes the expectations that they put on themselves or that they think others are putting on them is just too great. And you see now more and more of these athletes realizing that they really do need that really tight-knit group or team around them that can help relieve the pressure. And to just see early signs, because I think if you know an athlete really well, either as a coach or a manager or a physio, or just as a confidant, as a good friend, if you can catch those early signs, because there's always those early signs that an athlete is starting to just tip over the other side. If you can pick them up early and see them and do something about them, then I think the longevity. Because what I'm worried about, Mike, you think about back in our day, the longevity that we had in the sport. As I said, I was a pro athlete for 20 odd years. The likes of Chris McCormack, Craig Alexander. We were just talking about them before when we were off air with Crowe and Marinda Carfrae. We had such long and illustrious careers, 20 years plus. And I'm just afraid with all of this racing that is available now, it's going to be much shorter. We're looking at people that they're even saying, I'm only interested in being a professional athlete maybe 5 to 8 years and then I'm done, I'm getting out. Whereas, my attitude was, oh my God, I want this lifestyle. I want to do this till I cannot do it anymore. I'll go as far and as long as I can. And that's why I think when I knew it was time for me to retire, I did the year-long retirement, just like Sebi. I was actually talking to Sebi before his retirement and saying, you know what, you milk this thing for as long as you can because you'll never have it again. Yeah. So the one piece of advice I give to these youngsters now is, listen, you are living the dream. Live it for as long as you can. Don't get in and out as quickly as possible. Savor it because it's the greatest time of your life.
Well, the upside of it all monetarily is there, but I think it can affect the downside of longevity because if someone races well for 6-7 years and just kicks butt, makes a great deal of money, and they go, okay, I don't need to do this anymore, which could take away the longevity. Maybe the new athlete, the new pro isn't looking at it like, oh my gosh, I'm 26 years old and I want to race until I'm, 38.
Yes.
42. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know.
No, I agree. And look, let's be honest. There has been a major shift from back when I was racing to now. Back when I was racing, yes, it was my profession. Yes, I was making good money, but it was still a lifestyle. I think now it's moved from being more of a profession, making good money, and less of being a lifestyle sport, which is great. I mean, we want the sport to continue to evolve. We want it to become more professional. I look at what the top guys and gals are making now, and I think, good for you. You deserve this. You work so insanely hard day in, day out. The hours that it takes to become the best as a triathlete is ridiculous. So you deserve to be making this sort of money. But for me, yes, the money was fantastic and I loved it. It's the reason, that I'm like sitting in this house right now. My sport paid for it, but there was always so much more to it than just that. I loved going to races because that gave me the opportunity to meet new people, to discover countries that I would never have otherwise gone to. And that's helped create the human that is sitting across from you right now. And that's what I take away from the sport, far more than any materialistic aspect of it.
Well, I hope the pros can take that type of thing away. And then, you talk about longevity. Look at Patrick Lange, 38 years old, he wins Kona.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Beats up on all the youngsters out there.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. And, obviously I've raced it 10 times, but I've been numerous more times. And that race is definitely a race of attrition. You can be the fittest, fastest, have the best numbers known to mankind. But at the end of the day, Kona's just a different beast, isn't it? It's not like other races around the world. It's certainly not like Nice. It's just such a war of attrition. And we saw it out there again a couple of weeks ago with the men that looked like they had everything under control. I mean, Sam Laidlow is a perfect example, having the race of his life. And then that bloody highway on that marathon, it is just brutal, non-forgiving. And it wasn't just Sam. It was half the men's field. We just saw them starting to implode left, right, and centre. And someone like Patrick Lange, who's just got obviously mentally so much more experience than anyone else on that race course, was just able to shine. And so hats off to him. It was an incredible race.
He did shine. So 2007, you came over to the good old USA to Ironman Lake Placid. And I was so proud to have you there. I remember I'd introduce you and people would go, especially the people that work in the Ironman, how do you know her? How do you know that Belinda Granger? Well, I've been with her for the last 8 years in Australia.
Yes.
Every time I see her, she's a friend. And I always felt good about knowing, international athletes because I travel internationally. And then you go out and you beat a bunch of American girls on the race. You win the race. And it was so good. And I've heard you say that race was a big win for you. Why was it such a big win for you?
Well, I hadn't done a lot of racing in America. I set myself up during winter in Australia, set myself up in Europe, had done that for quite some time. And I'd done a lot of racing in and around Australia and Asia and Europe, but hardly any in the States. And my coach said, you need to go over there and you need to make a stand and show your face in America. It's the biggest triathlon country in the world. And I said, well, I didn't know what race to do. I hadn't really looked at the calendar. I didn't know a lot. I knew that there was obviously Kona, but I hadn't done a lot of racing, if at all, on the mainland, particularly full distance. Mm-hmm. And my coach at the time said, well, I think this course will suit you. It's got some punchy hills. It's an undulating course, and the run the same, because I wasn't a fantastic runner. I certainly wasn't a fast runner, but I could run well off a hard bike. And so this course seemed to suit. And it was going to be a wetsuit swim, which suited me as well. So I went over there, was blown away by how beautiful it was. And that was back when they were doing homestays. I had the most amazing homestay that took me around the entire course before the start, made sure that I had everything I wanted. And race day, I was just in such a great frame of mind because I was visiting somewhere new. The place was drop dead beautiful. It was like out of a fairy tale book. And my homestay had made sure that I wanted for nothing. So I got to the start line and had no excuse. There was no excuse that I could use to have up my sleeve in case things didn't go well. So I went in with that mindset, no excuse. You're going to go out there and you are going to do this race as to the best of your abilities. Anyway, swim was great. I had my normal swim, got on the bike, and I don't think even to this day, the only course that would get close would be Penticton. So the bike course in Penticton is still probably my favourite bike course ever, but the one in Lake Placid would have to come in an exceptionally close second, but it was just beautiful. And yeah, before I knew it, I had the lead and I didn't look back. And yeah, it was a huge, and that was back when they did the men's race was handicapped. So I ended up being first across the line.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, or it was just an age group race, and the men were handicapped. They weren't there, and there was always the worry that there was going to be an age group. The winner of the age group race was going to overtake me, and technically be the first across the start line. And I'm like, don't let that happen, Belinda. Don't let that happen. This is your one opportunity to win here. You've got to be first across the line, and I was just. But it was such an incredible experience. I'll never forget it.
I love it. Belinda, who are your mentors? Besides your parents, and
this is an easy one.
The ones you admire and look up to. Who set you on a path that you still today thank them for?
Absolutely. This is a no-brainer. It's Heather Furr and Rock Fry, without doubt. I get emotional thinking about it. They did more for my husband and I than any human being has ever done in terms of sport and preparing us for a life as professional athletes. They let us into their house. They let us live with them year in, year out in California when we finally decided to go to the States. Heather let me train with her. She, and anyone that knows Heather Furr, she's the quietest person on earth, but by God, when she's got something to say, it's worth listening to. And Rock was coaching her at the time. He helped me out as well. And they were just so insanely generous with their time and energy, particularly with me, and really convincing me that I had what it took to be at the top of the game of long-distance triathlon. So, yeah, forever grateful to those two. I
love that. Two of the most favorite people of a lot of people in the world.
Yeah, incredible.
What would you change about our sport today? Is there anything that kind of get you the wrong way and go, dang it, what the heck are they doing? What would you change?
Oh my gosh!
Now I'm asking you this.
Now you're asking this, and this is controversial. I'm starting to get sweaty.
That's okay. That's okay, because you know what? We're not going to lose our jobs. We're okay.
No, exactly. And exactly. And look, again, I've always stood tall and stood true to what I believe in. The one thing that upsets me the most, and yes, it's not me being naive. I know we live in a world where competition, well, particularly in sport, competition is the key. And I understand that this happens in every facet of business and life, where unfortunately competition is a huge part. But I just wish that the sport of triathlon would work together better. So, whether we're talking about World Triathlon, Ironman, Challenge Family, independent races, PTO, T100, I wish that there was a way that we could all work together without trying to destroy each other to make our sport truly the most magnificent, incredible, amazing sport that it is out to the rest of the world. I just sometimes feel that we're hammering our heads together against each other and instead of working together a little better. And look, maybe I'm living in a land of rainbows and flowers and butterflies, but a girl can only dream. And I just think if we had a situation where we all got together and we were able to work more cohesively with each other, I think it would be better for the sport in the long run.
My analogy on that is the sport itself, no matter if it's T100, Ironman, whatever it is that's out there, PTO, that has a personality of what we love, the swim, bike, and run. That's the personality of the sport. It's the personalities running a lot of those factions that are a little bit different than one another. And I think if those personalities start sitting back and going, okay, what's better for our sport as a whole? Because if you take a look at 5 years down the line, I can't predict where we're going to be. Are we going to be in the exact same spot? Are we going to be worse off? Is there going to be 2 more players that come in the game backed by billions of dollars? And then it's even crazier. So, but I think the personalities within the sport that are running it are the ones that have to be just like the sport of swim, bike, and run.
Yeah, I agree.
You understand that a little bit.
I do. I agree. And look, the reason I'm not making a fortune in this job, I'm not doing it for the money. I've stayed in this sport for as long as I have because I still genuinely love it and respect it as much as I did, probably even more so now than when I first got into it. I love the athletes. I love nurturing the up-and-coming athletes. Yeah. We have them coming to stay at our house, and we chat about it, and I get excited when they get excited. So, my love for the sport has never died. I get frustrated on a regular basis. Just ask Justin, he'll tell you. But the reason I get frustrated is because I have such love and passion for the sport of triathlon and for everyone involved in the sport of triathlon.
And, the sport is so much, obviously, since the advent of social media over the years, and everybody can see who's doing what, who's training what, who's racing what. When it first hit me, and it may be the same for you, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, and people would start coming up, oh, yeah, Mike, you did this. And, yeah, I know, that's great. And you went there, and I'm thinking, how the hell do these people know?
What's going on here?
And they're telling me oh, yeah, that's a social media thing. Somebody took a picture of me. You must find that, too. People come up, Belinda, that was a great training run. You had Noose, and you're thinking, when?
What's he talking about? Oh, look, social media, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And of course, if you're an elite athlete today, you have to have social media, whether you're doing it or getting someone to do it for you.
Right.
It's an absolute must. Even I know now when we're looking at working on agreements for certain races, we don't just look at the athlete. We look at that's racing. We look at what they can provide off the field as well. So it's one of those necessary evils. But I look back at when I was up in the mountains training with my group, with my squad. Back in the day in Switzerland, up in liaison, and there was no social media. I think Facebook had started. You didn't have it on your phone. You had it on your computer. So if you weren't at your computer, you weren't on Facebook. And so when you came home from a hard day's training, you did exactly what you're supposed to do. You ate and you recovered. You went to sleep, and life was simple. It was just eat, sleep, train, repeat. And now it's eat, train, come home, check social media, update social media, check what everyone else is doing. Oh, actually, now I should actually get some rest because I've got another 2 sessions to do for the rest of the day. You know what I mean? It's so much more complicated than what it was when I was racing and training. Training was a breeze because.
Social media, the biggest thing we look forward to was the friggin' triathlon magazine coming in the mail.
Yes. Nice pictures.
Oh my God, it's here. It's here. Look at the picture of that. Oh, they got it.
I know. And it was always a month after the fact, whereas, now. We
didn't care. We didn't care.
No, it didn't matter. You were hanging out for, especially if you knew that you were going to be in, Belinda, we put a picture of you in the magazine next month. Oh, what?
Yeah.
Scratching through to find it.
Well, Belinda, my last question on Find Your Finish Line for Belinda Granger, as it is for everybody. It comes out of the Baja 1000. I have friends that race cars, trophy trucks through the Baja 1000. And I've sat in the second seat, and it's intense for 1,000 miles over that terrain. Well, they get together afterwards, and they call it table racing. And when I heard that, I go, table racing? Yeah, we sit around the table. We reminisce about the event and talk about it and that type of stuff, or another event. So I call this tri-table racing. So tri-table race with us. Reminisce whatever comes to your head about an event, something during the event, what you did, what comes to your mind, and tri-table race. Reminisce.
All right, but before when you said table race for a second there, I just have to tell you, I thought you were talking about actual table racing, because in Roth at the after party, we used to table race Felix. So Felix, and that's when you actually raced along tables.
On the tables, yeah.
You do this? I thought Roth was the only place that did that.
Okay, that's another reason I got to come.
Exactly.
I want to beat Felix on the tables.
Everyone wants to beat Felix. No one's ever done it, though. He's an absolute world champ. Oh, classic. All right. So this is a different sort of table race. Okay. So
yeah. So what is it? Reminisce about an event, something that happened, something that comes to your mind.
One of the greatest for me is obviously I had a massive rivalry with Lisa Bentley from Canada. Love her to pieces. Yeah. Wonderful. And we're still very good friends to this day. And while we were always good friends off the field, I tell you, on the field, I wanted to crush her. She used to come to Ironman Australia every year.
Every year, yeah.
Every year. And every year I would get a bigger and bigger lead off the bike. So, first year it might have been 10 minutes. The next year it might have been 12. And I think I got it all the way up to at least, I think one year it might have even been a 21-minute lead, but she would still continuously run me down. I think the worst was with less than a kilometre to go, and she would run past me and I'd just be devastated. And, I'd have many a time where behind closed doors where I'd cry and thinking, I cannot win Ironman Australia if Lisa Bentley keeps returning, because I cannot beat this woman. And I remember sitting down one year, because Ironman Australia was early in the year. I'd go then in the winter to camp in liaison, sat down with my coach, and he'd say, we're going to send you to Ironman Canada this year. And I said, are you insane? I'm not going to Canada to get beaten by the girl that keeps beating me every year in Ironman Australia. You stupid man. You don't know what you're talking about.
No, and she's Canadian.
And she's bloody Canadian. So not only do you want her to beat me in my own home race, you want me to go there and her beat me in her home race. She goes, and I still remember him saying, you stupid, stupid girl. You still don't get it, do you? I said, what? He goes, think about it. The pressure that you have when you are competing at home, where all eyes are on you, everyone wants you to win as the local athlete, as the Australian athlete. She comes floating in, no pressure at all, pops you off across the line. You are going to be hurt now. She's going to be you in her country. She has all the pressure on her shoulders. She is the local champion. She is the one that everyone knows and thinks should win. You're going to drift on in. No one's going to think about you at all. Anyway, I said, no, okay. It was starting to come around. I still didn't believe him, but it's starting to come around. Got on a plane, went all the way to Penticton, had the most incredible homestay lady there that was just, you're going to win, Belinda. Kept telling me every day, you're going to win. I know you're going to win. Wilma, her name was, magnificent woman. And I started thinking on the start line, you know what? I actually think I can win this. I started to understand the psychology, the psyche behind it all, and how I really didn't have a worry in the world. She was the one with all the worries in the world. Lined up, I knew that I'd have a great swim. I knew that I'd get a good lead off the bike, but I knew that she would be running. She was one of the greatest runners we've ever had in the sport. Yeah. And I remember at one point in time, I had 8K left to run, and Paula Newby-Fraser rode up beside me on the bike because she was out there to make sure that the race was being fair and everyone was doing the right thing. She rode up beside me. She goes, Belinda, we've done the maths and we've done the time splits. If you continue to run the last 8K on the pace you're on, and Lisa continues to run the last 8K on the pace she's on, I think she was at about 9. She was probably at 9.5K at that moment in time. We've got you guys sprint finish. And you should have seen Paula's face light up. She was like, this is going to be the best. It's going to be a sprint finish on this finish line. And I remember distinctly looking at her going, not over my dead body. Not a chance. And I just took off. And the finish line in Penticton, you get down to the main street where the finish line is, but instead of turning right to the finish, they make you do this dogleg. They make you run the opposite direction, do a U-turn, and then run this beautiful long finish straight. And anyway, I got to the intersection, and I thought I just have to get to that far turnaround because then I will have eyes on her. I will see where she is, and then I can relax. Anyway, I got there, realised that I had it in the bag because could see, came round, could see that she was a fair way behind, and ended up winning the race. And everything that Sato said to me, my coach said to me, was absolutely true. She tried to make up the time too quickly on the run. She blew up, and she actually ended up slowing down quite a bit the last few kilometres, and obviously meaning that I won the race. And I cried on the finish line because I'd finally done it. You have these nemesis, these great rivalries, wow, which shape you as an athlete. And Lisa, I have so much respect for this woman, and we had so many great battles, but I will never forget crossing that finish line in first place. And giving that speech the next night at the awards was just, it was one of the highlights of my entire career.
I had never heard that story. That is really special. It was a ripper, and I love telling it because it was just one of those defining moments. Everyone has one or two defining moments in their career that really shaped them, and that was absolutely probably the most defining moment I've ever had. Yeah, and especially me being there at all those Ironman Australia races, feeling
knowing
you and going, oh my gosh,
it's happened again.
Yeah. But then Canada came along and it was your reprieve. That's a great story. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Belinda Granger, you are a true soul, one of the best this sport's ever seen. We are lucky to have you, still a huge part of it for what you do and keep giving back. So thank you very much for that. And be sure to say hello to Justin, Beth,
I will.
Everybody down in Noosa. And
it's crazy here at the moment.
Riley's still around and he wants to say hello to everybody down there.
Well, it's funny. When I was at gym this morning, I said, I can't stay around for coffee. Got to go. I've got important things to do. Like, what have you got important to do at this time of the morning? And the pride I had in saying, well, I'm actually doing a podcast with Mike Riley, and to see their eyes light up and like, no way, really? I'm like, yeah. So, you have such an incredible reputation in the sport as well. And, we adore you. And so I feel exceptionally privileged to be on your show today.
Well, remember, you're the one that brought me the birthday cake at Ironman Australia up on stage with that singer from John Farnham's band singing Happy Birthday, Mr. Okay, that could be a whole nother podcast.
That was cool. Exactly. That was a cool moment in the sport. I do remember it distinctly, and I think that was one of the biggest after parties we've ever had as well, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, it was very sweet. That was very sweet. Thank you again, Belinda Granger, and thank you again, everybody, for listening to another edition of Find Your Finish Line. You're the cause of your own experiences. And if you keep those positive as much as you can, day in and day out, you will always find your finish line. My warmest aloha, everyone.